Ali Abunimah is the co-founder of the Electronic Intifada and author of The Battle for Justice in Palestine. Joins me now from Chicago via Skype. Good to have you with us again on the programme. For our international audience who aren't really aware of the ins and outs, the intricacies of the agreements, ending the agreements and understandings, I mean, what are those agreements and understandings that both parties have signed up to that they're now, well, looks like it's in the trash can?
Well, there's two important points here. One is that the creation of the Palestinian Authority was allowed by Israel after 1993 for one purpose and one purpose alone, which was to create a native Palestinian auxiliary to basically implement the occupation on behalf of Israel. And that is and has been the role of the Palestinian Authority since its creation. Israel allows Palestinian security forces to have guns, but those guns are only to be used against Palestinians. And so the agreements are basically that the Palestinian Authority acts as an auxiliary police force for Israeli occupation forces. Now, that's given the title security coordination. That's the polite name for it that's given in the agreement. Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PA, has announced, I can't remember how many times, that he's suspending this agreement or that agreement. And the fact is he's never done that. He's never suspended an agreement. And indeed, this evening, as we're speaking, Palestinian Authority sources told the Israeli newspaper Haaretz that, in fact, security collaboration between the Israeli occupation forces and the Palestinian Authority is continuing and will continue. And the reality is that the Palestinian Authority can't move a salt shaker from one side of a table to another without the permission and help of the Israeli occupation. So, to boil it down, Mahmoud Abbas's announcement that he's suspending agreements or tearing them up is absolutely meaningless.
Is this then just saber rattling?
No, I mean, he doesn't have a saber to rattle. So, you know, you can't rattle a saber that you don't have. It's simply an empty announcement to make a headline, to try to impress the Palestinian public, who I think knows better than to believe any of this. It's because the Palestinian Authority is completely dependent on Israel that all they have is announcements. The only meaningful move would be the one that the Palestinian Authority has ruled out, which is to dissolve itself and to force Israel to assume its legal responsibilities under international law as the occupying power. Instead of subcontracting Palestinians to act as prison guards for the occupied population, let Israel do it directly. Let Israel bear the cost and the opprobrium. But that's the one thing that Mahmoud Abbas will never do, because there is a small Palestinian Authority political and business elite that, you know, benefits from the status quo, while the rest of the Palestinian population has been reduced to utter dependency and dejection under the current PLO-Israel partnership.
If you're saying that that's the underlying issue that will remain and keep the status quo as it is, publicly, as Abbas is saying, with no cooperation, does this then, in theory, allow Israel the right to do what it wants in the occupied territories, or wants, you might say, policed by the Palestinians? Or, as you've suggested, really the Palestinians never had any power to start with, and they were just doing what they had to do at the behest of Israel?
Well, very quickly, Israel has always intended to annex the West Bank and has, in fact, been doing so for decades. The only difference now is that previously Israel hoped to have a Palestinian signature on the annexation, to be able to wave around an agreement and say, look, the Palestinians agreed. Now, the only difference is that Israel is saying, we're going ahead and we don't care whether the Palestinians agree or not, because we're confident that the United States, the European Union, and the Arab regimes will either support us outright or do absolutely nothing to stop us. So that's the only difference. Annexation doesn't change anything on the ground. It's just an indicator of Israel's brazenness and confidence that it no longer needs the fig leaf of a so-called peace process or peace agreement with a Palestinian signature to complete the robbery of Palestine from the Palestinian people.
Ali Abunimah from the Electronic Intifada. It's always good to have your insight. Thanks for joining us from Chicago.
Thank you. Thank you.